Corrupt to the Mishnah on Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. Mishnah on Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. Okay, we're in the Sugya of Pesha Asar, Pesha Hitter. V'chein shnei anoshim zoim mekayin ani v'zeh mekayin. Each one says they're a kayin. So no one is being testifying to them. They're only testifying on themselves. So ain't a nema. They won't be believed. Ubizman shein me'idim zeh al zeh. However, when they go ahead and say on each other that they're kahanim, hariyelu ne'emanim, they're believed. Now, there's a concept, guys, called goimlin. Goimlin would be like, I guess, goimel chesed, or the best way to talk it, wink, wink. You pat me on the back, I'll pat you on the back. So, listen, you'll say I'm a kohen, I'll say you're a kohen. That's what goimlin means. That you're chayish the goimlin. You're chayish that you're doing, you tit for tat. You do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein mailon lekahuna al pi eid echad. Rabbi Yehuda says, an eid echad, you're not going to be maila, because a pashut pshat that he's chayish the goimlin. So you have machlokes. The Tanna Kama says one aid would be enough to go ahead and say you are a kohen. Rabbi Yehuda says no, one aid is not enough. Why? Each one, because one is, I guess you could say one is chayish the goimlin, Rabbi Yehuda, and one is not chayish the goimlin, patting each other in the back. Rabbi Loza, Amosai, when do I say one aid is believed, one not believed? Makom sheish oyrin. Makom sheish oyrin, ma'ilon kunal pi eid echad. So this is a third pshara. Like Rabbi Yehuda, one aid can never go ahead and make you into a kohen. Like the Tanna Kama, one aid could always make you into a kohen. Like Rabbi Eliezer, it depends. If there's oyrin, if there's question about your lineage from other areas, then one aid cannot do the job. Without question, one aid could do the job. 3 sheet. A fourth sheet which we need a hezber on. The how is he different than the Tanna Kama? The Gemara will explain. Okay. We've been for many daf now discussing the following. We've been discussing these cases. 4 cases of Pesha Asar. The first case we were exposed to Pesha Asar was Sadcha Shel Avicha Ulkachtia. This field belongs to your father, and I bought it for him. That was number 1. Number 2, Eidim say Ksav Yodeinu Huzeh. This is our handwriting. Aval Anusum Ayinu. We were forced, or we were puzzled, we were gamblers at the time. Number 3 was the yesterday's daf. I'm an Eishes Ish, but I'm a Grusha. I'm an Eishes Ish, I'm a Grusha. And number 4, which is not listed, is I was captured, I'm Tuhayra. So those are the 4. Again, the first one and the second one dealing with Dinei Mamonis, guys. Again, the first one and the second one dealing with Dinei Mamonis. Let me see, can I get this a little larger? There you go. Okay, there you go. The first one and the second one dealing with Dinei Mamonis. This is your father's field. I bought it from him. Your Eidim are signed on a shtar. They're signed on a shtar. It could be a shtar of a loan. It could be a shtar of a sale. And the last 2 dealing with Isser, whether you're mutter or not. The Gemara wants to know the following. Why do we need all these cases of Pesha Asar? Why do we need all these cases? So again, those are the 4 cases. And now that you know them, I can go ahead and do that. Okay. Kol Hani Lamali. Why do we need all these 4 cases? So Tzricha, you need all 4 cases. The Itana Moida Rabbi Yeshua, that's the case of Sadeh. If you learn this case of Sadeh, Mishum de Ikka Drar de Mamaina, there is a connection to money. He's holding on to it. Taisa says Drar de Mamaina. Sha'ayma hu muchsik, the one who said Sada is holding on to the field. In Masechta Bab Mitzia, it says one who has shaykhis to mammon. So this person, he has to what to gain from it. He's holding on to it, right? Aval Eidim, the case of Eidim, the Leka Drar de Mamaina, they're just testifying. They don't have any shaykhis. They're not being machzik in the money. They have no shaykhis to this money. They're testifying, but they're not gaining by the money. It's not theirs. So Eimalo, maybe we would not say Hapesha Asa who Hapesha hit there. To say that what Katana Mayinu, Suleidim Masina, Anusa Mayinu. Maybe he won't be believed. So in the first case, right, maybe then he's believed, but the other one not. Vitana Eidim, and if you learn Eidim, Mishum Dilla Alma, Aval Io Dilla Nafshe Eimaloi. What does that mean? Rashi explains beautifully. Let's see Rashi, guys. Dilla Alma, Ein hadibur ha'achroi mahani la'atzmai elo la'acherim. When the second dibur comes, does it help them? Adam. What did Adam say? We were Adam. Good. Now what do they say? But we were Anusim. Who are they helping? They're helping the Leiva. We're saying that what? That the star is not a star. They're helping the Lokeach or the Moicher, that the sale was not a sale. In other words, the second statement is not about themselves. Masha'en Kain, the case of the person who said, it's your father's field, but I bought it. Now the but is helping him. I bought it. So maybe you're not believing. In other words, we got two cases. One, why should I believe the field? Because he's holding on to his muktzak in the field. Mashkein came to Eidim or not. Why should we believe the Eidim? Because their retraction or explanation, better term, the explanation of their Eidis does not help them. Versus the explanation of the man who said it was your father's, it helps him by saying, but I bought it. Maybe not. So therefore, you need to tell me both cases. Good? You need to tell me both cases. Case number 3, again, case number 3 was the case of Eishes Ish Gerusha, and the fourth case was the case of Shvuya and Tahira. V'yashmir Hani Tarti, the case of Eidim, and the case of Sadeh, Mishum Dimemoina, because as I illustrated before, they're both questions of monetary matters. Aval Eishes Ish, the Isura, but Eishes Ish, which is a matter of Isser, a Maloi, that was number 3. Eishes Ish, I was, but I'm Gerusha. Maybe we don't say a Pesha Asa. Nishpesi Tahira, the case of what? Lamali. So why do I need case number 4? I was captured and I'm Tahira. If it's a Mamanistic case, it's not. If it's an Eishes Ishtic case, it's not. Right? Mishum de Kaboy Lemisne ve'emishanisas bo Eidim Harizule Seitse. If you might recall yesterday's daf, we explained that that there was the Mishnah said 2 cases. Gerusha, guys, look at my hands. Gerusha and Nishpesa. We had 2 opinions. There was a third clause, my pinky. The third clause was, and if they get married, then they can stay married. What clause was it going on? If it's going on the first clause, Gerusha, it's not going on the second clause because there's a special kula, there's a special leniency we give to captives. So therefore, by Gerusha, they say, but by Shvuyin, right? Not necessarily, even though they did, certainly by Gerusha, then certainly by Shvuyin. But if it's going on Shvuyin, maybe it doesn't go on Gerusha because maybe we only say that leniency by, okay. Says the Gemara. The reason why you tell me the fourth case is to teach me the fourth clause, the third clause, my pinky. Question. Says the Gemara, 1 second, it wasn't going on the fourth clause, on that clause necessarily. Very good. We had an opinion machlokes yesterday. The one who says it goes on the seifa. Therefore, it will make sense. So therefore, you said case number 4 to tell me that the case where if they get married, they'll say is going on case number 4. Who learned in the case of Gerusha, case number 3, why do you need case number 4? The clause of my pinky, right? The clause when Lois Seitze is going on Gerusha, it's not going on the fourth case. So what do you need the fourth case for? What chiddush are you hearing the fourth case that I don't know from the first 3 cases? And for the Gemara, Mishum de Kavoy Limisne, the yesterday's daf, Shtei Noshim Shenishbu, 2 women that are captives, who Shtei Noshim Shenishbu Lamali. So what do you need to tell me that case? Mishum de Tema, Samad de Tema, Nechish legoimlin. I might think we're suspicious of goimlin. I'll tell you what, you say I was captured on Tahira, I'll say you're captured on Tahira. I might think you're suspicious. Kamash Malon, you're not suspicious of tit for tat. You know, you got my back, I got your back. Kamash Malon. Says the Gemara, our Mishnah, why do you have to tell me what 2 men who say the Kahanim? Mishum de Kaboilim Misnei Plukta de Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanon. Because you want to tell us Machloikis that like the Chachamim, the Eid Echad is believed to say on the other, and Rabbi Yehuda says not. So now you got to tzrichas of all what? All the cases, all the Pesha Asa, the drawer of the Ramayna, the Muchzik that's holding on to the money. We have the case of what of where you're gaining, he's gaining by explaining it versus what they're not gaining by explaining it. The first 2 cases money, the third case we say it by even by Eishes Ish, by Gerusha, and the fourth case to tell me the chiddush of what of it's Loiseitze, and the reason why you said the fourth case of Kontamad Yama that's going on the third case, it's for the Mishnah of 2 Nashim, and that we're not chayish legoimlim. And over here, to tell me the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, where an eid echad is believed by Sekuna. Tan Rabbanan. Ani kayin v'chaveri kayin. So again, like on Mishnah, this is the brisa that's a little more elaborate. I'm a kayin, and my chav is a kayin. Nemon lachiloi b'truma. He's believed to feed truma. Ve'enoi nemon la'asiyah isha. But he's not believed to literally marry a woman. What exactly marrying a woman means, let's spend a little time on this. Says Rashi. La'asiyah isha, the second line down. Nemon lachiloi b'truma ve'nemon la'asiyah isha miyucheses. You not be able to marry a woman that's miyuches, ma'ilahi b'yuchsen. In other words, there's a question on his lineage. We're going to question his lineage. If you look at Rashi, guys, Chafei Amid Beis. Rashi, 4 lines up. Chafei Amid Beis, from the bottom. L'asiyah isha, 3 lines up. Shema mamzer oy nesinhu. Maybe he's in a sin or a mamzer. In other words, the ne'emanis of these people are only vis-a-vis eating truma. In other words, you want to say you're a kayin, you're an eid echad, you want to eat truma, it's your life. If you're not a kayin, you're going to chay misa b'dei shemayim, okay, we'll let you eat truma. But to the extent that we don't recognize who you are and say that you can marry a Bas Yisrael, that we won't do. So Rashi is learning, this is not really a case of kahuna so much. Guys, it's a case of stamazoi. If you're in a sin or a mamzoi, it's not a din in kahuna, it's a din in anybody. You can imagine a lot of people arguing Rashi, right? You got some juicy taisus on Chav Dalet over here. And basically what they say, it's a din in kahuna. Basically they're saying it's a din in kahuna. That this woman, we have a concern about being a chalal over here. So l'asiyah isha, that if you marry this woman, don't think for a second that your children will not be questioned about their lineage about being chalalim. Or maybe lav dafka l'asiyah isha, but it means that to do the avoida. So in other words, according to Rashi, it's lav dafka kayin, it's a din in anyone, because it's a din in yichus, we don't know who you are. Like the Bali Taisvis and like the Ritva and other Mefarshim, it's a din in kahuna, that we're questioning vis-a-vis the avoida, questioning vis-a-vis chalalim. That's what it means. Meaning, but the main point is that one aid is limited to the extent that will make him a kohen. We won't say carte blanche. Oh, your mamish the kohen gadol. We won't make him into Aaron. We'll make him to at best a questionable kohen. At best. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. So that's how we're going to understand L'asiyah Isha. Machlokes Rashi, Tosfos, and other Rishonim. Rashi, very, very difficult Rashi to understand. Really, guys, really difficult. Okay, so you're only partially Nemon. One more time. Ani koyin v'chaveri koyin Nemon lachila b'truma v'enu Nemon L'asiyah Isha. Ad until Ad sheyiyu gimel, you need 3 people, meaning 2 other Edom. Ad sheyiyu gimel shnayim Edom al zeh, u'shnayim Edom al zeh. You need 2 people testifying in this one and 2 people testifying this one. In other words, in order to make him a full-fledged koyin, a full-fledged meyuchis, you would need 2 Edom. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, af einu neman lachila b'truma. You won't even believe to be truma at shiu shleisha until you have 3, 2 Edom, shnayim Edom al zeh, u'shnayim Edom al zeh. Good. So it's mashma Rabbi Yehuda is what he does not. 1 aid won't be believed, but you need 2 Edom. Just give me. So, guys, basically, what did the Mishnah say? What did Brisa just say? Exactly what the Mishnah said. What the Mishnah say? The Tanakhama says an eid echad is believed to say that he's a kohen, albeit limited. And Rabbi Yehuda says even on that limitation, eating truma is not believed. So what's the machlokes between Rabbi the Chachamim and the Tanakhama and Rabbi Gamliel? So we suggested in the Mishnah. Guys, look at me. Here's the suggestion. Take a look. Are you chayish l'goyim l'manat? Are we chayish that you'll testify for me, I'll testify for you? Like the Tanakhama, apparently we're not chayish l'goyim. Testify, you'll eat truma. Okay, you'll eat truma, you'll be believed, but you will be believed to some extent. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you won't be believed at all. Why? Because we're chayish l'goyim. We're chayish that you're lying, and you're saying, well, you say for me, and I'll say for you. That's Now the Gemara has a problem with that because we're going to bring a source where Rabbi Yehuda is not chayish the goyim and the chachamim are. We're going to bring a stira, but right now that's the explanation of machloikis between Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yehuda, and Tanakama. Says the Gemara on the second line, Chav Daled, second word line. Remember, you mean to say that Rabbi Yehuda chayish the goyim? Rabbi Yehuda says you need two edim and not one would be chayish for goyim. That why you're patting the guy in the back and he'll pat you on the back. Rabbanan loy chayish the goyim. 1 second. I heard the opposite. I heard the opposite of that. Rabbi Yehuda is not chayish the goyim and Rabbi and the Chamar. Did not in the following Mishnah in the Mai. Again, the halacha is the Mai of Amaretz is the two of Amaretz with Choshe. They don't take off Meiser, so you have to retithe it. We take off Meiser. That's called the Mai. The Nan Hachamarin shenichnasu le'ir. You got these donkey drivers. They're carrying produce. They come into a city. But Amar Echamehem, and one says the following. Shali Chadash, mine is new, not such good quality. V'shel Chaveri Yoshan, but my friend's is what is Yoshan. This is not, according to Rashi and most Mefarshim, this is not referring to Yoshan and Chadash before the Ketzira Soimri after Ketzira. It's speaking to the quality of the grain. One is more dried out, which is a better quality. One is more fresh, which is the worst of quality. So he's saying that his friend's quality is better than his, right? He's saying his friend's quality is better than his. Shali ain't mitukin. Mine, I didn't take off trumas and meiser. V'shel chaver ain't mitukin. So in other words, buy from my friend and not from me. Ain't a neman. He's not believed to say that what that his own thing was not taken off trumas and meiser. That's the Tanakama. He's not believed. Why? Because we're chayish the goyimlin, right? We're chayish the goyimlin. Really, we don't believe this guy. We believe. What do we believe, guys? We believe in this town. He's saying his stuff is junk. And you'll get to the next town and he'll say his stuff is good. That my stuff is good and yours is junk. So the Chacham say Ein an Emon because Pashas like the Chacham Michayish the Gomlin, which is not like the Chacham of our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Ein an Emon. Rabbi Yehuda says he's believed. So now you got a problem. Rabbi Yehuda says over here when you have 1/8 saying on a kayin and another 8 saying on another kayin, the friends they're going ahead and they're making a trick the Chayish the Gomlin. And here he says no, you believe the guy. So really, we have a stira, the Chachamim versus the Chachamim, and Rabbi Yehuda versus Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, it's a double stira. The Gemara is only asking it right now on Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara will address it in a second. Rabbi Yehuda chayish the goyim. You see from the case of the donkeys, he's not chayish the goyim. He's believed to say his stuff is junk. I'm not believed that when he gets to the next town, they're going to go ahead and reverse their positions. So Amar Rav Amarav, you're right, switch it around. Say that Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says that he's not believed, and the Chachamim say the other believe. In other words, switch this around to make everything stem. Don't switch it around, keep it as it is. And now I have a reason why Rabbi Yehuda is not chayish l'goyim. You know why? You know what? Really, I am chayish l'goyim. Really, and therefore, by truma, you say it's a kohen, you not believe. You need 2, not 1. Why am I believed over here? Because since the Mai is a chashash ba'alma, more majority of Amaratzim do take off Maisa. So over here also, the guy says, I didn't tithe. Now, we won't, we'll believe him. We ain't an Emma, we won't believe him, right? Why? Because we'll believe him because most people do take off Chumas and Maisa. Amar Rabba, Rabbi Yehuda Kasha, the Rabbanan like Kasha. 1 second. It's a double Kasha, but you only addressed one. You addressed the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who's chayish l'goyim by kayin, who's not chayish by donkey drivers. But what about the chachamim, who are not chayish by kayin and not chayish by donkey drivers? El Rabbi Yehuda like kasha, he's shaninon. Really, he's chayish l'goyim, but over here, because of the Mai, it's only mamish chash ba'alma. He's not chayish. The Rabbanan like kasha. Kidam Rav Chana bar Ukva, like Rav Chana bar Ukva said in one place, shekli umnis biyadai. He has the tools of trade in his hands. On the base, Hachanami here as well. V'shekli umnis biyadai. What's the terrace, guys? Here's the terrace. Look at me. Here's the terrace. If a guy doesn't want to make a sale, my produce is not tithe, my produce is not ready for purchase, it's chadash, would he be having his scale and his measuring sticks and his bags, his glotmot bags ready for packaging? No, he wouldn't have his tools of the trade ready. He has his tools of the trade ready. Why? Because he's tricking. Over here in this town, he's going to say what? Guess what? When he gets to the next town, you know what his friend's going to say? My stuff is chadash and my stuff is not type, but his stuff is yashran. So in other words, the fact that he has the tools of the trade with him shows he's ready for business. Therefore, the chacham machayish the goyimlin. But normally, in the case of kayin, he's not chayish the goyimlin. That's the difference. So Rabbi Yehuda is chayish the goyimlin by kayin. He's not chayish the goyimlin because of the mai. The Rabbanon are not chayish the goyimlin by kayin. They are chayish the goyimlin by the donkey drivers, because since he has the tools of trade with him, you see that it's just a matter of time till he's open for business. When he gets to the next town, he'll be open for business. Good, great teretz. Now the Gemara just wants to know where did Rav Chama bar Ukva say this din of tales, tools of the trade? It says the Gemara, v'heicha itma de Rav Chama bar Ukva. Where do Rav Chama Ukva say his din? Aha, on the following none. Okay, just bear in mind, fellas, the Gemara in the end of Chagiga, guys, we learned Chagiga together, so no excuse. The begodim of an Amoretz are midris to a parish. The beged of an Amoretz has a din of a zav. For what? For vis-a-vis the kalim of the begodim or of a chaver, of a guy who's parish. We know that a kli cheres receives tuma from its airspace, from the airspace of its receptacle. So with that in mind, let's see. So this is the Mishnah, the first Mishnah in the seventh parent of Tyrus. Hakadosh sheniach ktei roisav. A kader, he's a potter. He made his pots, and he leaves them v'yorad lishtais. He goes down to take a drink. Hapanimius, the ones that are closer to his, I guess to him, tahar. Vachitzonius, and the ones that are farther away from him, closer to the street, atame. Iva tanya elul tameus, they're both tahar. So Rav Chama bar Ukva v'shekli umnis b'yadai. They're both tamei. It's speaking where the kli umnis is b'yadai, right? If they sheyad hakol mashus behen. In other words, if you go ahead and have a guy making pots, there's no raya that he's selling his pots. But as soon as he has the bags out, and as soon as he has the measuring sticks out, whatever the potter uses, so it's open for business. Once it's open for business, what do? If you want a pot, you'll pick it up and you'll check it out. So if he goes down to take a drink and he's open for business, every single pot there is tamei. You know why? Because it's suspect that some Amoretz went ahead and touched the pots, regardless of their location, whether they're closer to the street or closer to him. Since he's open for business, anyone can go in and take from it. Okay, we just brought the raya where what we needed. We'll explain the rest of the mission in a second. But you just said it's speaking with kli umnis biyadai, right? That's all we needed. That we needed that sentence, that clause. It's speaking. They're all tamei. Even the inner ones are tamei when his kli is open for business, because his kalim for sale are there. Okay, continues the Gemara, and Tanya elu ve'elu tahayres, they're both tahar, meaning even the outer ones are tahar. Right? They're not. In other words, it's not open for business. No sign that it's open for business. That we says the inner ones are tahar and the chitzonius tameis taking mishkachas. What's the case? If he's open for business, they're all tamei. If he's not open for business, they're all tahar. So where do you get this shita of the inner ones being tahar and the outer ones being tamei? Says the Gemara, the smichel shusarabim, because he's next to a shusarabim, and because of literally the rubbings of a shusarabim, we're worried that an amoretz passed by, and his beged went into the kalim. So which kalim are available? The ones that are outside. The ones that are inside are tahar. Bottom line is, why do we bring this in? For one point, to show the concept of what? Open for business, when you have your tools of the trade with you. So, okay, so the first teretz to the machloikis between the Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham was goinlin. Here's a second teretz, nothing to do with goinlin. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanon b'maylav mitrumin leyuchsin kamiflagi. Okay, now we know already what yuchsin means. It means you can marry a woman, right? You can marry a woman, or the koyim. We won't worry about chalalim, depending who you hold, like Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam. The Chachamim hold you're not maila mitruma liyuchsin. So the fact that an Eid Echad is believed to be truma, we're not worried about, and the next step happening, because that eats truma doesn't say anything about his priesthood. Could be he's eating truma, but doesn't mean we're going to say, oh, you're eating truma, you don't have to worry about chalalim. Rabbi Yehuda on the other hand says no. Rabbi Yehuda says we are. If you eat truma, we're going to go ahead and be ma'il. You will say you're a fine fellow, and we will be ma'il yuchsin to let you marry. And that would be the machlokes why Rabbi Yehuda requires two rather than one. The Chachamim who say that one's enough to eat truma, they're not worried about that going any farther because you're not going to go ahead and elevate him from eating truma to yichus. Like Rabbi Yehuda, that you would go ahead. Therefore, we'll be very careful to ensure that when you eat truma, through two aid and not one aid. That will be another way. This will be nothing to do with goymlin, but another way to explain the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Says the Gemara Vaita. Since we're discussing now, we're going to go off on a tangent. And that's such a tangent. To discuss other ways, would you be ma'il yuchsin based on some of the other duties that a kahanim performs? We know kahanim do certain things, so we know regarding truma, eating truma, it's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Iboilahu, ma'il lahalas mishtaris liyuchsin. Would a star of priesthood somehow go ahead and allow him to say he's a kohen? Hechidami, what exactly is the case? Ilema dichsevei ani ploini kohen chasamti aid. In other words, you're invited to a chasana. There's a ksuba, and they give you what? They mechabed you with a ksuba, and you sign Shloima ben Aaron HaKayin. Says the Gemara. Man kamasad lavei. There's no edis on him. That can't be the case of Shtaris, that he wrote that he's a Kayin. You have no aid on him at all. All he did was sign that he's a Kayin. There's no edis there. So like Tzricha, the Ksivbei, here's what it says. Ani ploni Kayin, lavisi manami ploni. 1 second. He's not the witness. He is the lova. In other words, he says in the shtar that I, the lova, who happens to be a kohen, borrowed money from Harry. Now, the chasimu sadeh, and now the witnesses are signing. Now, what's the shaila? What are they signing on? Just the amount of money, or even the yichus of this guy? My amonishe b'shtar komisadeh on the 100 in the shtar, but the kohen himself not at all. A dilma akula milsa komisadeh, right? Or maybe they're testifying on everything, and even saying that he's a kohen. So, if that's the case, would we go ahead and say he can marry a miyuchas? Rav Huna Rav Chisda Chad Amar Mailin b'Chad Ein Mailin Samachloikis between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Iboilahu Malu lahalas minasias kapayim liyuchsin. So now you see a guy duchin, guys. You see a person gets up duchin. If he duchins, does that make him a kohen? Would you be Mailin liyuchsin? Would again our discussion? Would we say there's any? Would you have to question his lineage, or according to Rashi? Tiboilam the Mailin b'truma liyuchsin v'tiboilam on the ein Mailin. This would be a shaila. Even the machlokes by truma, like Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, would even have a shaila by Nasias Kapayim. Leman the Mailin, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Hanimili truma, the oven misahi. In other words, if you eat truma, you're not a kohen, you're chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. The fact that you're willing to go ahead and do it must be you're a kohen. Therefore, I'll be ma'il liyuchsin. If you're eating truma, it must be you're a kohen. Al Nasias Kapayim, guys, it says Kaisa Baruch Hu B'nai Yisrael and Pashas Nasai. This is the way you should bench Klal Yisrael. If you're a non-kohen, you get up, so it's an asay, it's a mitzvah for a kohen to do it. And mechlal, if you're not a kohen, you shouldn't do it. But it's not like lav. So, aval nasias kapayim the isser asay loy. Maybe there's no difference. Okay, so that's the shilas. Whether you ma'il or not. Good. Now tiboilam on the ein mailin. There'd be a shilah according to the Rabbi the Chachamim who say ein mailin. Even if you eat truma, it would not be a raya. Why? Truma which you eat clandestinely. So let's say you're not worried about the oven and misa. Let's say you're just worried about what you look like, what people think. So over here you're doing it privately. So therefore we a mailen. Avon nasias kapayim there for hesya. But if you're going to get up there and duchin, ilav koyin who, if you're not a koyin, kule haile mechatze finish. A person doesn't have such chutzpah to go ahead and duchen if he's not a kohen. So maybe he would be Maila. So in other words, what did the Gemara say? We have a Shaila. Now let's go through it. We know there's a machlokes by Truma. Rabbi Yehuda says you are Maila by Truma liyuchsin. The Chacham say you're not. We know there's a machloikas by shtaros, whether the Adam on the shtar is signing on just the loan or signing on the individual says he's a kohen. Now, what about the Messias Kapayim? What about duchening? So it says that this shaila by duchening will be a shaila even according to Manda of truma. Even Mandiyama says truma, that truma you be mila because of misa, but the Messias Kapayim, since there's no misa involved with it, maybe you would not be mila. There's no difference. And even according to the Mandiyama Tanakama, who argues Rabbi Yehuda, who says by truma you would not be milin, maybe that's truma because it's betzina. But to have the chutzpah to do it for hesya, you would not have unless you were a kohen, right? Kamash Malon, no, olay no shna. So that's the Gemara just feared us. It wasn't paisha the shaila. It just elaborated upon the shaila is even according to Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim will argue by truma over here as well. It will be the same shaila. Amalei. So pluk the Rav Chisda Ravina. It's a machlokes vat between Rav Chisda and Ravina. Hilchas Samai. What's the halacha? Amalei. I know a brisa. The Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Gedoyle Chazaka. You know how great Chazaka is, guys? Unbelievable. A little background over here. We know that Ezra led the people back after the destruction. The Golus Bavel, he led them back to the Bayesheni. During that time, a lot of Jews intermarried. Again, remember there was no Beis Hamikdash, and Truma was the Rabbanon because it was in Bavel. And now he's going back. Questionable. Who are the Kahanim? Maybe Chalolim, Kahanim, Mamzeh, who knows what? Question on Yichus. So this is a report of what Ezra tells a certain family. Gedoyle Chazaka. Chazaka is tremendously great. Shnemar, Ubnei HaKohanim, Bnei Chavaya, Bnei HaKoitz, Bnei Barzilai, Asher Lokach Mibnois, Barzil HaGiladi, who are Yisraelim, Isha, the Yikra al Shemam, Eila Bikshuk Savam, Hamisyach Hashem. This family looked for their yichus brief. They looked for their letters of connecting them back to Aaron. They looked for their letters, and they could not find the yichus briefs. The Yigalu min kahuna, and they were apostled from the kahuna. This particular family, they were apostled from the kahuna. Vayomer harsharta lahem, harsharta, which is Nehemiah. Nehemiah told them, Ashala yochlu mikodesh hakadashim. You will not eat from karbanis ad omud koyin l'orim v'tumim, until the koyin asks from Urim V'Tumim. The Urim V'Tumim was the parchment that was slid between the Choshen and the Ephod. We saw in Masechta Yuma, right? And it answered questions. In the second bias, fellas, there was no Urim V'Tumim. So basically, what the Nehemiah is telling them, until Mashiach comes, you're finished. Until Mashiach comes, you're out. You don't know. Until Mashiach comes, you're out. You're out. Why? Because we don't have any Urim V'Tumim. Now, where do you see Gedoyle Chazaka? Where do you see anything over here? So all he told them was Gedoyle Chazaka, and he told them you're not Kahanim, you won't eat kachim. So Amalahem, Hari Atem b'Cheskaschem b'Maha Yisem Oichlin b'Goyla. You know what your Chazaka is? Even though you don't have your Yichus brief, and even though you can't eat Karbanis, you would be able to continue to eat what you ate in the Golas, right? The Kochi HaGavol, which means Truma. Afkan b'Kodesh HaGavol. So therefore, you who don't have your yichus briefs could eat truma. V'isal kedaitas ma'ilum nesias kapayim liyuchsin hani kivin de parsa yadayu asi lasukinu. In other words, let's be pushing the shaila. If you're going to tell me you're ma'ilum liyuchsin, so these people, right, who are not kahanim, if they were duchin, then you'd be meyachas them. So it must be that what? That no, it must be that you're not ma'ilum liyuchsin. Good. Again, these people are. Clearly, Nehemiah said that you cannot eat. Clearly, Nehemiah said you cannot eat kachim. Meaning, since you lost your yichus briefs, and we don't know, there was intermarriage. We don't know. You can't. You're not kahanim. However, chazaka is really great. How great is chazaka? Since you've been eating truma all along, you can continue to eat truma. Right? Good. Now, mashma that what? You have these non-kahanim situations. These guys are going into Eretz Yisrael. They're going to duchen. Yes. Now, if you're Milo Liyuchsin, why are you worried? But he said they're not Kahanim, right? Obviously, must be that even if they duchin, we're not worried because you're not Milo. So we'll tell you we have a raya. Says Myrna, you have a raya. Shiny hacha the raya chaskayu. These people, since they only kachim, their chazaka as Kahanim have been diminished. So it could be really Milo Liyuchsin, but these individuals not. It could be other individuals, yes, who don't have their chazaka wasn't destroyed. But these people who Chazaka was destroyed, they're not eating kachim, right? And they're not doing the avodah, so therefore must be what that even if it must be ken sign that what that duchening we would be mali yochsin, but these people not. The loyte mahachi lamanda amamayla mitruma liyochsin according to Rabbi Yehuda, keeping the achli betruma asi lasakinu. Why aren't you worried that we can let you eat truma the rabbanon? You continue to eat truma, right? Nehemiah said you can continue to eat truma. It's like the chachamim who say we're ma'il liyuchsin. Why would he let them continue to eat truma? Elolav mishum derei chaskayu. It must be because the chazaka has been questioned. So since they're questioned, they can eat truma. We're not worried about liyuchsin. Who are then? Since the chazaka is in question, we will not worry about them if they duchen. So what's gedol chazaka? Rabbi Yossi said, right? Gedol chazaka. Rashi, top Rashi. Why are we worried about lahashbis cheskasam? Kima yesh lachash lebatala. When it says gedol chazaka, what's it saying? Really, we'd want to do away with it, but we can't. In other words, really, we shouldn't treat you as kahanim at all. But since you've been eating truma, since now we'll allow it. What's the big deal that we're allowing you to eat truma? If you're telling me no shuld, nothing bad can happen because we're not going to be ma'il yuchsin, what are we worried about? In other words, when you say gedol chazaka, it's mashma. Oh, gedol chazaka, I really want to take it away, but we have no choice. Even if you have no choice, big deal, nothing bad's going to happen. You're not ma'il yuchsin. Why? Since the chazaka has been delayed and gestarkt and destroyed and questioned, they don't need kachim. So what are you worried about? That you have to say gedol chazaka? Says Gemara, and I'll tell you what. You know what? That the chazaka was you can eat truma deraisa. That's the chazaka. What can we do? In other words, you know what the chazaka is? It's so strong. Since you ate truma derabanan, you could now that we're going to Eretz Yisrael, you'll eat truma deraisa. V'bay yisema hashtanami b'truma derabanan achla, b'truma deraisa lo yachla. So then back to the original question. So what does the chazaka do? V'chi maskina mitruma liyuchsin b'truma deraisa. When are you ma'asik with truma liyuchsin? That's only by truma deraisa. The truma derabanan lo maskinan, right? By truma derabanan, you won't. In other words, if a person eats truma derabanan, will be ma'al liyuchsin. When the chachamim who argued on Rabbi Yehuda said ma'al liyuchsin, it was speaking about when you ate daga tirish v'yitzar, when you ate the deraisa dika, when you from wine or from grain or from olives. But my gedol chazaka. The afagav the ikal and migza mishum truma deraisa lo gazrinan. Even though you could be geyser from truma deraisa, we don't make a gezerah, right? So the Fred Gemara with truma deraisa lo yachol, they don't eat truma deraisa. But kasiv asher lo yochlu mikotcha kedashim. He said you won't be able to eat karbanas kotcha kedashim. Mikodesh kedashim hu lo yachol. Habet truma deraisa achol. Mashma that these people from the family of Barzilai, they would be able to eat truma deraisa. He says, well, no, we make a mistake. When it says Kodesh Kedoshim, it includes two things, right? Hachi Kamala. Loi b'midi dikri Kodesh, you won't be able to eat the right something called Kodesh, which is Truma. Tichsiv v'chol zor lo yochel Kodesh. Guys, back to Yavamis, Perek Oro. Any zor and any non-Kohen lo yochel Kodesh was speaking about Truma. So in other words, when Nehemiah told him you want anything that's called Kodesh Kedoshim, he wasn't limiting to Kodesh Kedoshim. He was saying that anything that's called Kodesh and anything that's called kachim. What's called kaidesh? Truma. You won't be able to eat truma deraisa. V'lo b'midi dikri kachim dichsiv ubas koyen kisiel izar abas koyen shall be to an izar he b'trumas hakachim le'saychal. She won't be trumas kachim. V'amar b'murim in a kachim le'saychal. We saw it in Masechta Yavamis, fellas. I love quoting Masechta Yavamis because we all know it. We said if a girl is a bas kohen, she gets married, she has no children. She goes back to eating what? She goes back to eating truma. She does not go back to eating the chaz of a shaykh. She would not go back to eating the shlamim. So that's what this pasuk is discussing about. V'amar b'moira mina kachim, the part that goes of the kahanim that is uplifted to the kahanim, such as what the chaz of a shaykh. So therefore, Nehemiah was telling them the following. Nehemiah was telling them two things. One, you're not going to eat kodesh, which is truma. the Raisa, and two, you're not eating kach, you're not going to eat the chaz of a shaykh. So therefore, you remind yuchsim from kodesh, and the chazaka is that, and gedol the chazaka that we're not worried that you may come to go ahead and eat the truma deraisa. Okay, just one thing for blog material. If you go back to Chaf Dalid Amid Beis, there's a fascinating source for a word. Hatir Shasa. Hatir Shasa is Nehemiah. Good. In the Sechta, I looked it up, guys. In the Sechta Rosh Hashanah, you know what Nehemiah's job was? He was the butler for Daryavish. What did he do? He would taste the wine to make sure it's not poison. He would taste the wine to make sure it wasn't poison. That was his job, that they shouldn't poison. So the question is, how can Nehemiah drink wine that had been touched by a guy? So obviously it's pikuach nefesh, it's tamyenam. So look at the word hatir shasa, guys. We can break it up into two words. Hatir shasa, hitir shasa. He was permitted to drink. It's a contraction of two words. Hatir shasa, hitir shasa. He was permitted to drink. Very geshmak of pshat. Okay, have a good night. Tomorrow 9:30. Tomorrow 9:30. Gitvach 9:30 tomorrow. Gitvach tomorrow morning.